many peaceful protests have turned to intense situations in Milwaukee and around the country.
And joining us now is Arnita Holloman from the Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention.
And Arnita, thank you very much for joining us here on Monday. Let's talk about the recent unrest. Yes, we've seen lots of peaceful protests, but we've also seen violence break out. What are you seeing here as people try to talk about George Floyd's death?
Well, what we're seeing is people who are exercising their right to protest and to have peaceful protests and to raise their voices around the issue of systemic racism and around police violence towards communities of color, particularly the Black community. But we're also seeing, with the violence and vandalism and looting, we're seeing folks that are also taking advantage of the opportunity to be out and do things that are more destructive than constructive.
You know, Arnita, there is also a bigger message here. And, you know, we know there seems to be a deficit of hope. People feel disenfranchised. They don't feel a part of the system. And this is making it more difficult for the people who are really protesting just because they want to make sure their voices are heard. But when people do the looting, it makes other people question the situation. So it's sort of driving a difficult juxtaposition here, Arnita.
Absolutely. And we want to always send messages of hope. But the reality is, and even as a mental health professional, is facing the fact that sometimes while we can see the hope, we also feel the pain, and it's palpable. And particularly for, again, communities of colors that are heavily policed, when we as a Black community are watching Black men repeatedly killed and murdered in the street, that pain is not something we want to just skip over, so to speak. We want to acknowledge that, and that pain is really oftentimes what fuels some of the peaceful protests and the change that needs to happen in the city.
Yeah, you talk about a number of things, about a conversation that needs to take place, but Arnita, for parents, what conversation should they be having? Not in just Black and brown communities, but in communities and neighborhoods and suburbs all across our state.
I think parents should not shy away from having the conversation, because sometimes as parents, you want to shield your children from the difficult things, the tough stuff, and they're experiencing it as well. And so it's important to both have the conversation, but in doing that, balance what's age appropriate for them in terms of how that conversation takes place, and maybe starting with what do they already know, what have they already seen, and giving them the tools to be prepared to engage either with, a society that doesn't always treat them well, and for non-Black or brown children, preparing them for what's happening right now, but what's their responsibility to change the world, to change the communities, to change block by block, and helping children understand that early on, and even getting them involved in that, but not shying away from it. You can also, you can validate the fears that they may have, and even the anxiety they may have, and even share some of your own, of course, in a way that's appropriate, that doesn't put more pressure on the child, but helping them understand the reality of this and how they themselves can help this to move things forward.
Yeah, very important. And that conversation is much different from a person of color than it is for someone who is not of color. We have to be honest about that. But let's talk about some of the good things that we have seen, Arnita, because we do have video of Reggie Moore from your office and some other people actually putting out a fire that protesters set.
Absolutely. So Reggie Moore, the director of Office of Violence Prevention, Hamid Abdul-Jabbar, who's a part of the 414 Life team, Vaughn Mays, who's a part of program The Parks, they were out in the evening hours, actually all weekend, helping to, in whatever ways that they could. And so that video of them putting out that fire was whatever effort can be made to stop what's happening and to intervene when it happens. And so we're grateful that our team was able to be out helping. And during the day, part of the team was out as a part of the cleanup. So on Saturday and Sunday.
All very good information. And
Yes.
we appreciate you, Arnita, not just today, but for all the weeks you have been here to help us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Arnita.
If you need help during these tense times, reach out to 211. You can call or text anytime and be connected to a live operator who can help you find mental and physical health resources. that you'll need.